Happy Sabbath, everyone. At this time, we will repeat our AY aim, motto, pledge, and then we will sing our AY youth song. The aim, the Advent message to all the world in my generation. The motto, the love of Christ compels me. The pledge, present arms.
Loving the Lord Jesus, I promise to take an active part in the youth ministry of the church, doing what I can to help others and to finish the work of the gospel in all the world.
Order arms. Our AY song, We Are a Mighty Army.
We are a mighty army, ready to do all things. We have a hope within us, a faith to live and change. Now when we march together, with Christ we have no fear. Let us carry highest banner, missionary volunteers. Forward march, we will lead all hearts to man. It's so good for us to just be in the presence of the Lord. Let everything that had breath praise the Lord. And it's time for us to lift our hearts, lift our minds heavenward as we bless the name of the Lord. If you are ready to bless in the name of the Lord with us, clap your hands, stamp your feet. Let's rejoice in the presence of the Lord because He has indeed been good to each and every one of us. He deserves all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. He is indeed able. He's able. We know our God is able. Let's sing together. I know He's able. He's able. I know He's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. Yes, He is. Oh, God is able. He's able. I know He's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through.
physical and psychological rest. Corporal rest occurs when one has a degree of ease from bodily activities in order to recuperate, such as having a break from one's continuous job and ease from a tedious exercise, and even a simple activity as football, where 15 minutes break is given after 45 minutes run. You see, psychological rest is also important as well. This occurs when someone takes time to relax mentally. Yes, this can be done by listening great gospel music in a quiet place of comfort, a calm, breezy beach walk, nature picnic, and even a vacation from a common job can induce one mind to rest. There is a lot of activities that interrupt the ability to rest. Some example of those activities are in the adult, struggle to provide financial, physical, and emotional support for the family. This can interrupt the activity of rest. In teenagers, studying for final exams, which clashes with peer pressure, also confused with choosing their pathway of career. And in the child, well, sometimes they battle just to rest. That's sometimes the fact. The benefits of rest. When I pulled the medical news today, some benefits it says of rest is encouraging peaceful sleep. It also helps prevent the risk of depression, lower risk of heart disease, improve athletic performance, lower the risk of weight gain, better productivity, and concentration. It's so nice to just take a rest. You know, when I look at spiritual rest as well, God in his intelligence of love, during his superb, majestic creativity, created an entire day of rest for all human beings. You know when I know that? Look at Genesis 2, 1 to 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished. Yes. And all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God created his work which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Just setting an example for us to rest as well. Come on, guys, rest a while. In verse 3 goes on to say that he blessed and sanctified that specific day for all of us to take a good rest. Nothing is more better than reaping the benefits of laying aside all physical and psychological burdens and resting, reflecting, and communing with our great Creator on the holy day that he designates for us. Exodus 20 verses 4 and onwards goes on to remind us how to rest, why to rest, in case we have forgotten. Then Isaiah 58:13 and 14 lets us know the benefits that we can obtain by obedience and resting on the seventh day, Sabbath, such as being exalted in things of this earth and even things above. In conclusion, guys, for this short period, rest is always important, and you can agree with me. But the perfect rest is resting in Jesus Christ and obeying his holy word, which pleases him and benefits us holistically. Have a great afternoon.
AY meeting. Indeed, we are having a wonderful time. I thoroughly enjoyed our song service and our health feature. That was very interesting. And even more interesting, this evening we are having, as you would realize, a panel discussion. And I have together with me here three esteemed personnel whom I will try to make justice in introducing them. And we all often hear ladies first. So we are going to introduce our lady panelists first. Our lady panelist hails from the Superior area. Her name is Sister Tessa Hospitalis. And Sister Tessa doesn't come to us just like that. She comes with some experience. And when I say she comes with experience, Sister Tessa has a degree in psychology. She's a happily married woman for 25 years now. I think you can guess that guy who's sitting extra close to her. It is her husband. Yes? She is excited about family life. She also is pursuing her master's in counseling and psychology. She says she loves children. She was planning to have 10. That is still in the making. She says she lives every day intentionally. And that's to sum it up about our Sister Tessa. Next to Sister Tessa is her dear husband. And he too is from Superior, I would want to think. He is here as one of our guests, and he is one of our pastors in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. His name is Pastor Clary Hospitalis. I did not receive much information about him, so what you see is what you get. And next, now this is a mouthful, not only because there's a lot of accolades that is attached to his name, but it's also that I know him personally from a tiny tot growing up all the way up there in Pinal. And I speak of no lesser person than Brother Dr. Oscar Ocho. And just to go through quickly, Dr. Ocho has been around. He knows his stuff. He's a person who believes that there is never enough. As long as God will widen his coasts, he will pursue in that direction. And he is married also. They say his hobbies, not hobbies, but his job includes research, nursing, management, health, policy, leadership. He has a doctorate in public health and policies, which he has studied in London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He is the director of nursing at the University of the West Indies. So we have some well-qualified individual with us today. And as we seek to enter into our topic of discussion for this evening, there are some aspects of life that we are going to get into, and we are going to have it being discussed by our panelists. And those aspects of life, I would want to itemize the three aspects, and then we will break them down. We have the early life, we have the teenage life, and we have the marriage married life. By the way, my name is Elder Declan St. Louis. I also have a BA, BY. His name is Christopher. Yeah. So we are here to enjoy ourselves as we praise our Lord and Savior, even through information as we share one with the other. And we are going to dive straight into our topic this evening, and we are going to start with early life. And if I was one of the panelists, when they said to me, you have to deal with early life, I would have been thinking about cavemen and the Neanderthal and yes, mythical set of stuff. But it's not that we are going to be dealing with this evening. And I want to pose our first question this evening. And this question, you viewing us can also search deep within and find answers to these questions that as we pose it to our panelists this evening. And the first question is, what is the role of parents in the early life of their children? What is the role of parents in the early life of their children? And as I started with ladies first, I'm going to go straight to Sister Tessa, who is going to give us her meaning to the question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Especially seeing I wanted to have 10 children, I found myself researching, finding out, but that has since changed to observation. And I have the wonderful opportunity to observe my younger sister, who just had her third daughter. And one of the things I would say without a reason of a doubt, the role of a parent is to give that child the ability to cope, that coping skill, the ability to make decisions. We find that there are times where parents take away that gift they could give their children, as it relates to how to make decisions. So it's okay to allow your children to fail, to ask questions, but know there will be a time when you would not be there. And if that skill of making decision, if there's one skill I think a parent should pass on, is that skill of making wise decision, because a time will come when you would not be there and that child will have to be able to make choices.
Oh, very well. So I want to underscore here, as articulated by our sister, the parents are the first teacher.
Yes.
Yes, they are the first teacher. Dr. Ocho, could you give us a little light on this question?
Yes, thank you so very much. The reality is, children come into this world not having any input as to how and when they come. But it usually results out of one act. It doesn't matter what the length of the act is. We call it sex act. And as a result, that coming together will have a significant impact on the mental and psychological well-being of that lady who has for 9 months to be carrying an extension of herself and the father. That child for 9 months will be growing up in an environment that is sheltered and protected from the outside influences. But the critical thing is that if that mother is not physiologically prepared nor psychologically prepared, it's going to allow certain messages to be transmitted in utero. Hence the importance of both the mother and father. And I stress mother and father because children deserve to have both parents in their lives, since both of them decided to have sex to bring the child in the first place. So therefore, that sense of safety and security is a primary function of the parents, to ensure that even when that child is birthed, that child wants to grow up in an environment that is called home, a safe space where their fears, their concerns, the outside pressures could be controlled and managed. And the other critical point I want to make about the role of the parents is to provide children with that sense of love and belonging. The reality is, if they don't get it from the parents, they will get it elsewhere, because it's a void that every child longs to have filled.
Oh, spoken like a true doctor. Indeed, that was a mouth full of information. And what I will want to reiterate from what was said is that the role of the parents is to provide safety and security for the children and to give them a sense of love and belonging. Indeed, some great points. Pastor Clary, there isn't much more to say, but I guess there is something you can say about what is the role of parents in the early life of their children.
Okay, indeed, I'll say good afternoon to everyone as well. And the thing about it with dealing with these children, as Tessa said before, the parents is to teach. I want to get that out. To teach and to teach diligently. It's a command that God gives to parents. You know, as a pastor, I always tell individuals as well, parents, that is your command. He didn't command the grandparents or the auntie or the uncle. He commanded the parents to teach these children and to teach them diligently, to bring them up in the fairness of the Lord. So in other words, you have to teach those children what God have directed you to do. You have learned from your parents, and now you teach them diligently what you learn and what God have allowed you to learn more than what the parents had given to you. You have to help these children as well to go along in it.
Oh, that's very interesting that you were able to add to our question a very important aspect, because of the fact that some parents believe that probably wait till they get to school for they to learn certain stuff, and they neglect some of the most important roles that they would have been given. So they are to teach the children. They must be Christian teachers. They are to train the children. Parents are to regard their children as entrusted to them by God. Yes? And there must be unity between the parents in disciplining and other aspect of those children's lives. I can't not give you some reference to go to if you want more information about the role of a parent. And we in the Adventist family has a cherished book called The Adventist Home. And if you look at chapter 2, there is a whole lot of information that you can glean from that book. So you can get it, and we are in the technological age, so you can just pull it up and you can have that information right at your disposal. So we are going nicely into our discussion, but there is something that we need to find out. It's kind of tied in with the first question, but what is the role of the children in the home? You know, we talk about the parents, now we are talking about the children. And all of us were children, so we should be able to answer that quite nicely. I want to start with Dr. Ocho. What is the role of children in the home?
Well, I take as a point of departure Ephesians chapter 6. It says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Children are to recognize that they are carrying a family name which should mean something to them. When our children leave us, whether they go to school, whether they go to church, whether they go to meet friends, they must always remember that they are representing a heritage that must be respected at all times. You see, I always tell parents, every day remind your child of what that name means. And you tell them, you see the name Ocho, they are not people who thief. You see the name Ocho, they are not people who are accustomed to go to house. So in other words, what you are doing is that you are inculcating in them the importance of respecting the family values and the family name through obedience, through the principles that would have been laid down for them by their spiritual parents. And I'm saying there, spiritual, because if we are not spiritual, it's difficult for the children to grow up with values.
Oh, very good point. Sister Tessa, what's your take on what is the role of the children in the home?
I will say to contribute as it relates to being obedient and chores. Understand that you are a part of a family, and as a result of being a part of this family, you are also a contributor. So going back to my model right now, Eden is 7, Emma is 6, and both of them already have their responsibilities, things that they partake of doing within the family. When I was fortunate, we were fortunate. I said I because at times it appeared that the responsibility of nurturing the boys were mainly my responsibility. We were fortunate to have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old living with us for 6 years? Yeah, just about 6 years. And it was amazing having to share that space and understanding, learning that now you are responsible for teaching, for allowing them to take up their role. And firstly, we as parents, we need to understand that children, once they are able to take up their role, their position within the home, then it's a smoother transition. It's not without challenges, but it's a smoother transition for them to transit into the wider world. So making sure as parents that you give your children responsibility in the home that will teach them different values.
Yes, and there were some interesting points that we have gleaned thus far, and I just want to touch a little on that last point, what was being said to us by Sister Tessa. The fact that we need to teach them what they need to do. That's important. So it comes back to the role of when I say they were correlated and they were interlinked with the first question and the second, we are seeing here where there is an active part you will have to play as the parent in teaching that child what are their role and function. You know, and sometimes we teach in different ways. You know, if they reach to the stage where they are supposed to clean the dishes, and they are not cleaning dishes, and they are not cleaning the dishes, I would want to suggest, and this is probably just me, let's ask them to try and eat in a dirty plate. No, don't try that at home, please. No. But what we need to do is, if we had set the example, they would have to want to a better two. And I'm speaking to some very educated people, jump and follow suit. Oh, that's
Can I just add something?
Yes, you can.
Because I think it's an important principle that we have to bear in mind, is that parents need to understand the personality of their children. Our children, while they may come from the same biological stock, from a psychosocial perspective, each child experiences life differently. And therefore, how you interact with one child, you may have to interact totally differently with another child to get the very same results. And therefore, while the child has a responsibility, parents also need to make it a study so that they could know how to get their children to respond appropriately.
Could I? I had an experience maybe just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and talking to my sister and my brother about our nieces, and we were comparing the both of them. And I said that Eden is very strong-willed, but I wasn't using the strong-will in a person. Did I say strong-will or hardened? I think I said hardened. But I wasn't using it in a person. And my sister turned and said, she said, no, she's strong-willed. And I look at her and I said, explain what you say, what you mean. She said, she's going to go out in the world and she would have enough persons saying negative things about her. She don't need that within her family circle. And then she continued to explain, as it relates to strong will, that she already at that young age knows the things that she wants to do. Yeah. Whereas Emma is totally different, but at the same time, you are seeing where my sister is literally taking a study of her children and not boxing them into, okay, this one's supposed to be that way, you know, and learning that what it is I could get Emma to do, I mightn't get Eden to do, and guess what? That's okay. You don't have to be like Eden. You don't have to be like each other. You are your own unique person.
Yeah. And interestingly, what they are speaking about is exactly what the direction you should take as a parent. Because long ago, you would often hear parents say, why can't you be like, you know? And those are some of the terms that, because of I would want to see our educated standpoint, we are moving away from. Because, again, each individual is wired differently. Yeah? All right, so I'm going to pass you over this question, but you, Pastor Clary, I'm going to pass you over this question, but you are going to come in with the next question, and it's no pun intended, nothing, no intentions, but just to have all the panelists being active. At what age should parents speak to their children about sex and sexuality? Oh, Lord, that's a very interesting topic. Pastor Terry?
Well, I'll say to that as early as they can understand. You know, when I did my first degree in early childhood education, I came up with some books. And at that point in time, from age 3, they were teaching these children their body parts. But if they were to rewrite those books now, dealing with the internet and all these technologies that we have, I think they'll tell you as early as they can understand. Because these little children pulling up some things online that will make you wonder. So from as early as they can understand, you are well, most of the time they're with the mother. But I'll say parents, you have to start teaching your children their different body parts. What is safe touch, what is not. And don't teach your children now like how we were taught back then. They make up all sorts of names for your body parts and make it sound. No, teach them the real stuff. And then you can say, okay, my child is ready to move on from here, because you got to teach them as they grow, different age, you start telling them as much as you can. Because as Brother Ocho said, if you don't teach them, somebody else would.
Wow. Indeed, that's very good information as to how soon. I dare say, I agree with Pastor Clary to a great extent. But then we must understand that the age that you talk to your children about sex, it's not the actual act. We are speaking about at this early stages, as Pastor was articulating, where they would learn their body parts and learn different stuff about themselves and sexuality and all these things. They would come as they progress, and they, according to this, there is something where we know for a fact that children have a lot of questions, and as he was rightfully saying, the question needs to be answered, and if they are not answered by us, somebody else will give them wrong information. So let's say Sister Tessa's take on this question. At what age should parents speak to their children about sex and sexuality?
I would like to just stay within that realm as it relates to age-appropriate information.
Yes.
So you have appropriate information that you will tell a toddler, you will tell an infant, you will tell an adolescent, you will tell a teen. So as a parent, you have to make sure you educate yourself with the information. There's no need for us to think about things as being taboo anymore. But know that our children are exposed. I remember when Clary had the conversation with his nephews that lived by us. They came to us 9 and 10, and then he had the conversation about 11 and 12. And what was amazing to us is that afterwards, this is when they were in their teens, about 15, they found it really funny the simple way in which their uncle was explaining the information. So in other words, they were already advanced in information. We are talking about a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old. So whereas Clary would have break down the information in simple terms and be as open as he can, telling them about the different changes as boys they would be experiencing, and when it happened to you, don't be afraid or don't be embarrassed about it, things like that. They were like, okay, they were happy that they had that experience, but that conversation should have happened long before then. So it's very important, and it's really, really important that parents take the forefront in this as it relates to speaking about their sexuality with their children.
So this evening, we are having an interesting discussion here. And if you are just tuned in, we are talking about the parents' role in the early life, right?
I guess the responses from my fellow panelists is on point in that it has to be as soon as the child begins to understand about his or her body, or whenever a child comes with a question, always bear in mind that that child would have had some kind of information already. And what is required, apart from age-appropriate information, you must be comfortable within your skin to talk to the children. What I have realized with a lot of parents, because they themselves made mistakes, they feel that they want to protect their children. And sometimes, instead of providing objective information, they present it in such a way that the children become curious and would want to explore. So that while you think you may be protecting them, you might be pushing them. So your comfort has to be there. But apart from that, rather than you giving the information, sometimes it's better to begin by asking the questions, because you want to use a baseline to have an idea as to what they know. And you can pick up from the nonverbals what they know and what they already know. You could look at the behaviors to kind of cue you in. And therefore, parents have to become detectives, where you have to listen without making your child aware that you are listening to conversations. So you have to be cleaning the cupboard, making little noise, but keeping your antenna up as you hear them speak, because they must feel as though you are being distracted, because that gives you a cue. And one of the things I do with young people on the whole, I am very straight up with them. So I may ask them a very direct question. You having sex? And what that does, it opens up an environment where it gives me the opportunity to talk with them. But I'm not saying that that's how parents should approach it. But you have to first understand the relationship that you have. You have to be comfortable in your skin. And as the child grows in age, always try to be a step ahead in creating the environment for sharing of that information, rather than the child getting himself or herself in a problematic situation. And the other thing I want to point out, which is a big problem for a lot of families, especially if there are issues like of incest, mothers, believe your daughters when they come with their stories.
Wow. And that's
I don't know. I don't know if this is coming. I'm going into the other question, but the thought that came to my mind, as parents, we need to be modeling healthy sexuality to our children. So our children need to be seeing tender touch, daddy passing and just bouncing mommy, or daddy giving mommy a kiss on the cheek, things like that. So they are exposed to healthy sexuality within the home. They understand that this is a safe environment. It is something that is shared. It just is an overflow of love. And we would tell those boys, they would tell me, Auntie, you go out so quick. Because I would ask them when we're having our open discussion, even with my nieces, my older nieces, we would tell them, we are the expert. I mean, it's 25 years now we have been doing this. So if there's any place you all need to ask the question, it should be us. We have a couple of doctorates, right? So you all come to us and let us be that source of giving you all the appropriate information.
Yes, indeed. We want to dive straight into the final question for this section of the early life. And that question is, how and when do we teach our children self-control? I wish I could answer this question, but I want you all to answer it first. Pastor Jerry, how and when do we teach our children self-control?
Once again, I'll say at the earliest age you can find it. As soon as they start understanding, you got to let them know, okay, how to control yourself, even in anger, how to control yourself in expression, because sometimes you will find individuals who express themselves in certain ways are like a fight. But yet still you'll find children who will be calm. So I will teach them at an early age, okay, this is the way how you speak appropriately. Don't loud up. Don't lash. Because just by the tone of voice that you will use will cause you to be in that frame of mind that you can pass some lash. At an early age, you're going to teach them, okay, this is the way how we handle things. And I might be talking to the parents. Okay, the parents, you have to start teaching them from now. It's how you handle stuff. Children learn from you. Mm-hmm. Right? Remember, God made Adam a helpmate. So now these parents come in and they're making little helpmates. So these little sponge soaking in everything that they see. So how you handle stuff. So at an early age, you'll be able to start moving appropriately around your children and letting them know, okay, this is how mommy and daddy does handle stuff. This is how you deal with it. Even when you go to school, etc., so you start teaching them from home. So they'll know, okay, when they go to school, okay, this is how we handle things at home, so they'll be able to have a discussion. Right? So at an early age, you start teaching them self-control.
Yeah. Sister Tessa?
Again, I would say modeling is such an important part. Because if, as a parent, you model particular behaviors, you are going to see it manifested in your children. So you start, as a parent, you start modeling right behaviors. And even though there are some behaviors that you don't model, you see it in your children, you have a discussion, know there are consequences for actions. So I'm thinking about my little niece, the youngest, and their parents already, she is 5 months, and their parents already starting to teach her self-control, because she has a schedule of her feeding time. She has her schedule of her bedtime, and you have the soothing. So there are times you will put her down and she would fuss, and you just go as a parent and you calm her down, let her know, I am there, but now it's not the time for playing. Now it's the time for nap time. So I mean, even in the womb, you start teaching your children the appropriate as it relates to self-control. Ellen White spoke within the first 7 years, within that first 7 years, you have an opportunity to really mold and form your children.
Yeah. Coach?
I don't know if I'm going out on a limb here.
Go right out.
But I'm of the view that self-control is not taught, but it is caught.
Okay.
In that, no matter what you say, children like to push the envelope and shift the goalpost. If you say, no, can I get some ice cream? And you say no, the child has a way of working on your psychological well-being. Sometimes the child may cry in such a way that it is not an uncontrollable cry, but a cry of please, and it works on your sense of, as they say, your neighbor strength. That you find yourself feeling so pitiful for that emotional response of the child. And you may find yourself in psychology what we call negative and positive reinforcement, reinforcing a behavior by validating to the child that if you know how to act appropriately, you could get the response and control the person who in the first place wanted to control you. So what we do is that we allow the child to recognize that I could catch you. But if you are consistent, the child understands and catches the principle of self-control. So to my mind, it's very, very important for us to, in whatever action that we initiate, that we be consistent. So children understand self-control through consistency in our actions. But it also is important by our own personal behavior, as Tessa pointed out. Because if I am not controlled in the way they see me treat their mother, or they see me treat the neighbor, then I am producing in them a kind of schizophrenic behavior, in that when they're in front of me, they behave in a way that suits me, and when they get out, listen, brother, it's going to be a horse of a different color. So the self-control, to me, is caught and not taught.
Oh, very interesting aspect. And if we were to bring all of this together as we look at the early life, when we look at the role of the parents, the role of the children, at what age the children should learn about certain things in life, and how to teach them self-control, we will realize that the onus is upon us as parents to guide that child into a direction that we will be proud of.
That's right.
Yes? And by no means are we to leave it up to Google and up to YouTube to actually raise our children. Because again, as we could see that now, you know, this is something that probably I am glad we are having this forum so I can highlight. Now, time gone by, we would have children coming to church and having to give an account. I had to give an account to my grandfather when I got home, because he was now shouting who preached, who sang special music, and stuff like that. So that meant that I had to pay attention in church. Now, we have kids being there, and as soon as they get a little agitated, there the phone goes across, and the children already knows how to subscribe to their best YouTube video, and they knows nothing about what took place in church. Why am I saying that as to add to the early life? Because this is a flaw of the parents in the early stages of that children's life, when they would tend to take, if they can't keep their attention on this item, quickly switch to something else. And this is what is going to happen when they grow up. They will not be able to stick to stuff when all they needed is just a little patience being taught and a little more effort as into helping them along. So as we wrap up this first session of the early life, we will recognize that, as I said before, the onus is upon us as parents to give our children the right foundation. And when the right foundation is set, then you can build a proper building. Yeah? So we are in agreement. So at this time, we are going to have an item of music where our hearts will be blessed by some wonderful singing.
So you have been listening for quite a while. You have been listening for quite a while. Food for thought, you know, interesting stuff. It's time for you to join in and sing with us. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. All go together. What a fellowship, what a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on His arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on His arms. I'm learning how to lean and depend on Jesus. My friend. I'm learning how to lead. I'm learning how to lead and depend on Jesus. Depend on Jesus. He's my friend. He's my friend, yeah. And he's my guide. I'm learning how to lead. I'm learning how to lead. I depend on Jesus. I found out that if I trust Him, He will provide. I found out that if I trust Him, I found out that if I trust Him, He will provide. Let's one more time. I found out that if I trust Him, He will provide.
Okay, so we are back to our discussion, and our first portion of our discussion dealt with the early life. And if you are now tuning in, you did miss a wealth of information. But all is not lost, because we are still here. I still have my esteemed panelists with me, and we are going to do justice to the rest of the topic.
That's an important question. And I want to use as a point of departure a sociologist, a social psychologist, Erik Erikson, looking at the teenage years representing a critical phase in a child's development, identity versus role confusion. And when we speak about the importance of purity and temperance, it is hinged on this particular milestone that our children have to contend with, in that they want to be like everybody else. And in being like everybody else, when we talk about purity, we have to look at purity from two perspectives: mental purity and physical purity. Very often we start with the physical purity, but the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Paul reminds us in the book of Philippians, whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, think on these things. Young people, as they go through their physical development, will be going through a lot of changes. For the young man, the penis will take on a different size, shape, and length. They would be hearing stories about what to do and what not to do. They'll have to contend with physical feelings that they never had before. They have to deal with thoughts that would penetrate their minds, sometimes at the weirdest time. And what you feed the mind could have a greater impact on the frequency and the desire to marinate the thoughts. And it is the marinating of the thoughts that will impact on the behavior. And we need to remind our young people that keeping yourself pure is still God's ideal. You know, one of the things we need to let our young people know is that when you keep yourself pure, you could live comfortably with yourself because there are no skeletons in your closet. The other critical thing is that if you believe everybody is not morally pure, in 1 second you could become just like them. But for the rest of their lives, they could never be like you, pure again. In 1 second, you could become like them. But for the rest of their lives, they cannot become like you again. Because once your purity has been tarnished, it's no longer pure. But you could redeem yourself. So I want to put that there. So sometimes our young people's bodies are not prepared for the consequences of the acts that are associated with sexual impurity or immorality. We're thinking about risk of pregnancy. We're thinking of risk for sexually transmitted infections. And you're thinking now of the impact of that on your entire life, from its physical to its mental to its social. So we need to remind children that it's about protecting them from themselves so that they could enjoy a better quality of life.
Wow. That was very heavy stuff. And just to pull that particular line where you said that it's easy for you to cross the fence, but it's impossible to cross back. I hope we really truly understood what has been said there, so that when your purity is intact, you would have a whole lot of folks who are saying that that is long time thing, and that is so not the norm, and they would want you to come in their direction. But as the kind doctor said, in one moment you can go over to that aspect, but at no moment can they return to yours. That alone should give you some encouragement to know that you are special. With your purity intact, you are special. And when you add the word temperance, we understand that there is information that is being disseminated that will help you to understand there is not a rush. There is not a rush. I can wait. And to be temperate in all things. So I am going to ask Sister Tessa what's her take on this question that we are dealing with purity and temperance.
So for me, when I think back, which wasn't too long ago, when I was a teen, one of the things that my mother was very effective in doing is allowing us to have a wonderful self-image. I don't know where Mommy got that skill from, but you always, I grew up believing that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah. My mother passed on that to me. And that being said, that did not stop me from making a decision that was not in accordance to what my mother's desire was. And I think the reason being, it was because of going through that teenage life, that, as Dr. Ocho would have mentioned, that identity crisis, and her not having the skill to navigate me through that. It became a very difficult period for both her and myself. And as parents, I really want us, the Bible tells us, my people shall be lost for a lack of knowledge. And we think that knowledge is prophecy knowledge. We think that knowledge is biblical knowledge, but we're not realizing that knowledge encompasses knowledge. So we are living in a time where you could find out the different challenges that your teenager would be experiencing. Because it's a biological change. This is a biological change that affects every aspect of my being as a person. As a result, my behavior of being, my attitude that would have changed from, if I was a mild-mannered person, you might find me more aggressive, things like, I am changing biologically. So as a parent, we need not to pull away. And I want to speak to fathers here. That your girl children within that teenage life, they need for you to come alongside them. That is when you start carrying them out on their first date. And you introduce them how it is she should be treated. Or you would do things with your boy children, because I'm finding more and more when the teenagers start to go through that tumultuous part, you find either one of the parents would lean in and another parent lean out. and it becomes just one of the parents now trying to parent this child. So it's like, that is your child. That is the time as a parent, you all really need to become real team players and lean in to, because the secondary school, it's a war zone. And that is one of the areas, one of the places where the adversary, have so many minds, different minds, that your children unintentionally stepped on. I remember doing an interview with a young man, and when he said to me, he said it was at the age of 12, 13, was either 12 or 13, when he took his first smoke. And this is from a Christian home. We were doing a research from a Christian home. And I was wondering how he would have navigated hiding that experience from his parents. But when he spoke about his parent, his mother and father relationship, it was as though his mother was his safe place and his father moved away from him as a young man. So I think it's really important as the teenagers navigate that time of their life that their parents come together and lean into them.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting aspect. Very interesting aspect as to the parents' involvement.
You see, the teenage life is a life that most parents want to jump over. They're expecting it. But when it do come, they want to pull out the hair out of their head. Now, one of the things I used to tell my nephews and them, don't, but this is why. Don't embarrass me in public. I deal with you right there and then. This is why. You embarrass me in public, I deal with you in public. If you go out and you double up at an early age in unprotected sex, this is the consequences. AIDS could come in. Don't do it because, a lot of times, in the videos, look at teenagers, but I think they want to get away from when they want to ask, okay, well, why? Why we shouldn't do that? And why we shouldn't? So we have to make sure that we have the answer to the whys. Because there's a lot of whys. And this is what I'm saying. Because of technology, they know a lot. So we have to make sure that we keep up with the information. So that when it comes, we can answer the questions. And we have to make sure that we're honest with the children. Right? A lot of time we try to hide information, and because one of the things we look at, we know of some of the teenagers, we know they're dabbling up in, we say big people business, but they're having their sexual affairs before. When time comes to marriage, they're looking for the prettiest white dress and the best looking suit to say that they're pure. No. Don't try to fool nobody. We know white is purity, so you're looking for the whitest dress outside there, when you're not. So we have to be careful and make sure we have the information to give to the children so that when they ask why, we can say, okay, this is it. A lot of times we try to hide from the whys because we don't have the answers to give.
Can I just say, because I think this is such an important point. It is okay not to have the answers. It is okay because sometimes children could come from, to use a sporting term, from the left field that could throw you off your mental well-being.
But you will get the answer.
But the important thing, sometimes you have to search for the answers together. Yeah. Sometimes it may mean engaging the child. Because sometimes what they want is to reinforce a particular belief that they have, Yeah. So you have to, in allowing and facilitating this, be honest to say sometimes, I don't know, I never thought about that. Let's discuss it tomorrow night. And you find yourself in a discussion and tell them, go and sit it and let's have a discussion on it. So that you teach them how to be innovative and how to problem solve. You know?
Yes, and that will tie right into the temperate part, the temperance. And giving those children the tools that are necessary to deal with anything that will come towards them. And we want to dive straight into the second question, and this second question is one that we often hear when we have discussions like this, and this is the question of peer pressure. And oftentimes there are explanations that we would give that it is something that we could avoid and stuff like that. But actually, when we look at the word peer pressure, you are simply being pressured by people of your same age, size, height, rugby sex, all the things that because they are around, you are around them. And how do they navigate? How should a teen respond to peer pressure? Sister, hospitalized.
How do you navigate? You are either influencing or you're being influenced.
Okay.
It's not a choice. And so as a teen, you need to you need to know for a fact. Let me go back to parents. Parents, you need to know that you are equipping your children to go out there. So as a result, if it is your children would face peer pressure, these are things that you need to discuss. We used to have discussion about how you would interact, put on role plays, real role plays of how you would interact if a person bring a joint for you to smoke. And we would role play with the guys, them, different scenarios. Or if it is a girl come to you to offer you sexual and free, because just what Dr. Ocho was saying, one of the days they were on their phones talking, and I wasn't intentionally not listening them, but I happened to hear part of the conversation. Nah, I don't want her. So afterwards, I inquire who you don't want and what was that about, and only to find out that at that stage within the school, these guys were being offered. I mean, the girls were targeting the young men and offering them oral sex. And it's amazing. That was like a scary thought for me. So I realized there and then we needed to really up our discussions. And when a person comes to you this way, what you will do. And again, letting them understand that walking in purity, giving yourself to your spouse, it's such a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful thing. And when you don't have to be fighting all the different thoughts that would be going through your mind. So peer pressure is a fact of life. But as parents, having an open discussion, just think about different topics that you would have faced as a teen and know that it's multiply 1,000-fold now. So there must be open discussion in order to equip your teens.
One of the things we have to let the teenagers know also there's nothing new under the sun. Now, I remember when I was in secondary school, not too long ago, Brother Declan, in our time, they was coming back around with earring in ears. And I know if I bow my ears, who I have to go home and meet. So I tried a little clip-on earring. And when I put the ears started to jump, I said, this is not for me. I said, either you all take me as a friend as I am, or you all go ahead and let me be by myself. And they understand that they can't really get me to bow ears or to put anything on my ear because this is me. This is who I am. And you got to let the individuals know, okay, you got to be who you are. And either they accept you for that, and that's it, or let that go alone. And as the Californians say, you die with your dignity.
Dr. Ucho?
I reflect on my childhood as you ask this question. I grew up in a very, very, very poor family. We had very little of this world's goods. Of the 15 children, I'm the first to write common entrance. That's to give you an idea of the kind of social circumstances that I grew up in. I'm number 12. But my mother used to make one statement to us that has stayed with me to this day. And she would say, children, I have nothing to offer you. But all I have to offer you is ambition. And you know, because we knew if we strayed from the narrow path, we get in licks in public, we get in licks in private. So, stay on the straight and narrow path. But at the same time, keep your head on. She would say to us, don't ask nobody for anything. So I will eat my bake and butter in primary school with my bottle of hot lemon juice. And it didn't matter because I was happy. Because that's what my mother could have afforded. I got 25 cents a week when she could have afforded it to spend. So you get having $100, you having $20. It didn't affect me because my mother said, I don't have anything to offer you but ambition. She said the yard is big enough. So people could come by us and play, but we cannot go by other people because she made us feel as though the little that we have was more than enough, not only for us, but for others. So I came through that with a sense of who I am. And I am not valued by what I have or what I don't have. I'm not valued by my handsomeness or my ugliness, because it doesn't matter how handsome you are. It doesn't take away from my personal value of my own worth. And I think it's important that we reinforce and validate to our children that they are unique, that they are special. So when the pressure, which is real, when it comes, they will remember the validation that they received from the people who mattered most.
Very well. Indeed, the peer pressure is something that every single person would encounter. In fact, in my growing up days, there was this particular guy I would call the facilitator in the village. If you wanted to do anything rebellious, he was the person to facilitate that. So if you were to smoke, he would give you the first cigarette. If you wanted to boil your hair, he will make sure he was there with the needle and thread. if you wanted whatever it was at that time. And this guy was on an all-out quest to have all the village boys at his disposal in facilitating and getting them to do whatever. And he said to me one time that he's going to make sure that he gets me to do a certain thing. And I did not know the profoundness of my statement, which I said to him. I always intend to be a leader and not a follower. I said that to him. And from that moment, it seems as if what he would have gotten through to the other people with, he would not even chance it with me. Yes, because he realized I took a stand. And this is what we are saying to you teenagers out here. You need to take a stand. And that stand would single you out as one being a thinker. As Sister Tessa had said in her opening remarks, is either you, the peer pressure is either you are you are influenced by it, or you are influencing people. And it's interesting. How come people are trying to pressure you to do the wrong stuff, and you doing the right stuff and not pressuring them to do? It's always on the negative. It's always on the negative aspect when it comes to peer pressure. So we as Adventist youths, we as believing Christians, have to encourage our children to stand and stand strong. I want to, this question is directly dealing with the time in which we are facing even now. And there is none of us who could say that I'm immune to this particular question that I'm coming, because I have come in. Because of the fact that this time that we are going through, where we have this lockdown situation, we found it easy to give our children their device to go and occupy themselves. Yeah? I'm guilty. And the thing is, there are some addictions that could come from the devices as into the cyber world that we live in. And if you were to think about the gaming world, and children will sit for hours and at end without even budging to get a drink of water or think about something to eat, just playing games, and they are addicted. You see, it may pose a serious problem. What counsel can we offer parents and children concerning just giving them the devices and allowing the devices to probably babysit or to give them comfort because of what we know can happen from it? What advice? I'm going to take two answers to this question, right? Cyber addiction, it is prevalent amongst the youth. What can we as parents do to help kind of turn them away from that? All right, Pastor Clary?
Well, the thing about it is that the parents themselves got to make sure that they are not addicted. Because we have some parents more addicted to the gaming more than the children. Now I say that, without apology or so, because, at one time I myself, I had a game on my phone. I had to delete it because I always want to beat that score that I have till I reached 300 and something thousand in the points, and one was it, and it takes up time. sorry, I said, no. This taking up more time than anything else. All the spare time I have, I take up. So I deleted off the phone. But the parents now, because they don't want to engage the children, I'm going to use that word, they hand them the device. And I always say, whatever control your mind will control you. So these games usually control the minds of young people because they always want to engage themselves and to go higher and higher and higher and higher in the game that they have. So because that is controlling their whole behavior and everything, we got to make sure that we as the adults as well have control over it, and we can teach the children how to have control over the device that they have.
Yeah, Dr. Ocho?
Two things I would say. Children need structure. And one of the things you can do is allow them the use of the gadgets as a reward. Yeah? So you know, if you put in 1 hour of work, you have 15 minutes to play a game. The other thing I would want to recommend very strongly to parents, become technologically savvy so that you could go in to the system when they would have logged out to see where they went. Because children are smart. I'm not saying putting spam, because they know how to get out of spam. You need to know how to get into the background so that you are always a step ahead of them.
Yes, important that because we are living in the technological age, it's important that we ourselves as parents know how to know where our children is or where they were, for want of a better term, when it comes to technology. This question is something that Dr. Ocho did touch on, but we are giving it a different spin. They are saying that the children now are not comfortable in their own skin. They are not comfortable in their own skin. And they are thinking about transgender, thinking to change from one sex to the other. What advice is there for this kind of situation, Dr. Ocho?
This is an extremely real situation. I remember when I was studying in London, I studied between 2009 and 2013. There was a 6-year-old who told the parents that he wanted to be a girl, and the parents had to allow the child to be dressed like female to go to school. Because more and more in the metropolitan countries, children are having more rights to their gender identity. I know of a particular case some time ago, I think it was sometime last year, where there was a conflict between both parents because the mother was facilitated of the child's desire for a different gender identity. And the father said, no, this is how the child should be based on the biological imperatives. And I think that got to the court. One of the things that we have to recognize is that there are multiple factors that are influencing the socialization of our children. And it's important that from the very onset, children learn to appreciate who they are based on how they were born. Now, one of the things we do as a society, and it goes back to the reinforcement, we see a boy who acts in a particular way that is not socially construed to be male. We say, oh, he's like a little girl. And what happens is that after that child begins hearing over and over, going back to education psychology, we talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. So we got to be clear that we don't reinforce a particular thought process. Very important. But also we need to encourage our children to recognize that God made you as a whole individual. And if he made you as male, that is what he wants for you and of you. Yes.
Important, very important. This helps us to understand that the teenage life is one that also needs to be guided. Just as the early life needed to be guided, the parents had an integral part to play in the development of their children. In the teenage life, we are not to take the back seat as we had established earlier, but we are to still stay in the forefront of things when it comes to helping our teenagers navigate through this part of their lives and to help them come out victorious in the end. Yeah? So we have one more segment. We have one more segment, and it's the married life. But before we go into that segment, we are going to have an item of special music, also a poem being brought to us. So sit back and relax as these two items are being brought to us.
I have written down depression. I have written down depression, anxiety, and stress, right? Because
if Jesus can't fix anything for us, then nobody can. Put all your trust in Jesus. If Jesus can't fix it, nobody can. No, now, if Jesus can't fix it, nobody can. is affecting too. The weight of the world is pressing you down. And when you need a friend, no one can be found. But I know someone who really cares. No matter your situation, he will answer your prayer. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. Nobody can. Come on, let's sing that again. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. Nobody can. Listen to this verse. There was a woman with an issue of blood. Oh, my Bible said this. See, 12 long years. And she heard about that Jesus was passing through. Oh, and so she passed away through the crowd. She said, I can touch the hem of his garments. I know I'll be made whole. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. Nobody can. Come on, let's sing that again. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. If Jesus can fix it, nobody can. Nobody can. Somebody sing Jesus. I said, Jesus, he'll fix it. What if your problem is, oh, Jesus can fix it. Somebody fine with cancer, but Jesus, he'll fix it. I know. Jesus can fix it. Somebody have mind problems, heart problems. Jesus, he'll fix it. I know Jesus will fix it for me. Jesus can fix it. Oh, if Jesus can fix it, nobody can. Nobody can. Hallelujah.
Don't blame the children. We read in the papers and hear on the air of killing and stealing and crime everywhere. We sigh and we say as we notice the trend, this young generation, where will it end? But can we be sure it is their fault alone? That maybe a part of it isn't our own? Are we less guilty who place in their way so many things that lead them astray? Too many money to spend, too much idle time, too many movies of passion and crime, too many books not fit to be read, nobody home when it's time for bed. Too many children encouraged to roam by too many parents who won't stay at home. Kids don't make the movies, they don't write the books that paint gay picture of gangsters and crooks. They don't make the liquor, they don't run the bars. They don't make the law and they don't buy the cars. They don't peddle the drugs that idle the brain. That's all done by older folks greedy for grain. Delinquent teenagers, oh how we condemn them. The sin of the nation, we blame it all on them. The law of the blameless, the Savior made known. Who is there among us to cast the first stone? For in so many cases, it's sad but it's true, the title delinquent fits older folks too.
And we are back. Indeed, we were blessed by those two items. First, the wonderful singing, and then that equally interesting poem. Some of us adults are also culprits. Indeed, we are. So we are in the twilight stage of our discussion. And it's interesting that we have left the married life for our last part of our discussion this evening, and we don't have much questions. In fact, we are going to do two particular questions, and then we are going to ask our panelists to weigh in on these questions as we wind up this evening's production. This is something that is not immune. A Seventh-day Adventist or Seventh-day Adventism is not immune to the idea of infidelity in marriage. Sad to say, but it's a true fact. And there are some mitigating factors that probably might contribute but we are going to really understand how do we deal with that if that so happens. So the question is, what is the best response to infidelity in marriage? I want Dr. Ocho to go last on this. I want him to go last on this. So I'm going to ask Pastor Clary to go take his first take on what is the best response
to infidelity in marriage?
Now, I always tell individuals, as the word says, drink from your own cistern. If you're not drinking enough from your cistern, you'll go and seek elsewhere. So infidelity in marriage is when you start to look for something more than what you have. Now, if you go and look over the fence, the neighbor grass may look greener than yours. But if you jump over, it might be plastic. So try and stay within your boundaries. Don't give up what you have. Don't go and look elsewhere. But always enjoy the marriage that you have. God made it, and He blessed it. And one of the statements I always make, when I look to Dr. Ocho, when folks come to me for marriage counseling, I always tell them, marriage is for men and women. Boys and girls stay home, pitch marble, and play dolly house. That's why God said, a man shall leave. A man, He didn't say boy. Boys have to stay home. So then you will leave and cleave unto your wife, so you all become one flesh. Infidelity is when you go looking. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, I'm a senator asked King David what happened when he was on the rooftop. He was looking for more than what he had inside.
All right, so.
All right, Sister Tessa, go ahead.
Sister Tessa is going to help her husband, because I saw her looking intently at him, because like he was going all around the question and not actually diving into an explanation about what is the best response. What is the best response to infidelity in marriage?
When we took that marriage vows, one of the statements that you are asked to repeat is for better or for worse. And it's as though we have a list. I have a concise list in my mind. What is my worst? And once you stay within that parameter of my worst list, then everything is okay. But once you step out of the list that I would have formulated in my mind as worse, then we have problems. And infidelity is one of those things that not on that list. But however, how am I to deal with infidelity? If it happens, it's forgiveness. Now the pastor whispering to me, forgiveness. He had the question, right? Forgiveness. And that could roll off my tongue so effortlessly because I have not experienced that. But a male or female who would have gone through that and would have come to us for counseling, one of the first things we tell them to do, deal with the emotions you are experiencing. Don't hide it, don't run away from it. Deal and experience what it is you are going through. And within the Word of God, it tells us, the wonderful thing about God's Word, it tells us every man should have his wife and vice versa. And if it is that you decide to stay within the marriage, I want you to know that you are staying within that marriage as it relates to having a forgiving spirit.
Okay. Dr. Ocho, now we wait on your response, as we know that you have a wealth of experience in both the counseling field and, no, I'm not.
You got me scared, you know.
Don't be scared, Dr. Ocho. I am simply saying because you have probably counseled a lot of folks that had gone through such situations.
Yes.
You will be able to give us a real cool how do we respond to such situations.
Okay. In order to treat with how do we deal with the response, we have to go back to analyze cause and effect. Because from a nursing perspective, if we do not know the cause of the problem, it's difficult to plan appropriate interventions. There are two things that we need to be clear about. Marriage is a covenant. And a covenant is not a contract. When I say not a contract, where there's a contractual agreement, that because a contract could be broken based on clauses. A covenant is a voluntary commitment to remain connected for better or for worse. And the other is infidelity is not a reaction, but a response to emotional separation. So long before I go for lentil peas because I'm tired with split peas, is because I was emotionally going through wanting a different taste. Because nobody will tell me that it just, I don't know how it happened. It just happened. It didn't just happen. That covenant that you would have made, there were breaches that started, but you never took it for granted. And therefore, as Tessa said, it has to start with forgiveness. But my question is, how do we forgive and learn to trust again? It's a whole process, because I could say I forgive you, but that doesn't mean I trust you. So have I really forgiven you? And it takes time for trust to be re-engineered, and I'm using that term advisedly. It takes time. But it also means that the couple needs to sit and talk. You know, very often people are enduring and not enjoying their relationship. But because of the fear of how will I come over, we prefer to suffer in silence rather than acknowledge that we are having a problem. So it needs some kind of communication, but it may also need some professional and not necessarily pastoral counseling. Because except you can begin to find yourself in a space where it is comfortable to share from the deep recesses of your emotional space, you could be going through the motions and you never come to the point where you touch the nerve. Acknowledge that it's painful. Because remember that when your husband or wife goes out there, they are sharing one of the most private parts of their anatomy. that not even their parents got to see after puberty. If you realize the level of privacy, plus you have allowed somebody else to enter into a space that is sacred. So you have to acknowledge the pain of that. And it will take time for that wound to heal. Don't feel that you could just come like magic, abracadabra. Because intimacy is a psychological thing before it is physical. And therefore, if you cannot deal and acknowledge, and it's important for husbands to recognize it may take a year before he could go back to have a warm time. He may have to think about it. He will have to pray about it. He would have to, because that trust, because you see, you can have sex without love, but that will be rape. So you have to realize that as time is taken to rebuild the trust, it is only then that you could get back into this space. And not wanting to get back early has to allow the person, just as an incision creates pain, emotional pain takes time to heal.
Wow. Indeed, it's something that folks have to deal with. And again, based on what has been said, each person will now have to deal with, if it happens, what direction do they take? Yeah. You know, because the same brush that might paint my wall won't be able to paint your wall. Yeah, because probably of the composition of my wall. Mm-hmm. But the fact remains that, as was established, that must be a level of forgiveness must comes in, where in fact forgiveness has to be the first step in order to go forward. Yeah. Because if forgiveness hasn't been reached, there is no going forward. Yeah? So our final question is a question where we can really give some pointers and give some information as to the married couples. What are some godly principles that married people can follow to keep their flame in their marriage and love in their homes? They're asking, what are some godly principles that married people can follow to keep the flame in their marriage and love in their homes? I could see the smile on Sister Tessa's face, so I'm going to go with Sister Tessa on this one first off.
I just want to put a plug in. It was about a week or 2 weeks ago I came home, and within your marriage you have your ups and downs. You have your high peaks and low peaks. And I think for the month we would have celebrated 25 years of marriage, April, the 16th of April. I got it right. The 16th of April. And we had a wonderful plan of traveling to celebrate this wonderful milestone within our marriage. And what had happened, well, we know about the pandemic, and it really made me feel sad as a person not having this experience. And what the outcome of that is that I would have gone through the process of not being a happy person to be around. I know it's kind of unbelievable because you see me and I'm usually bouncing off the wall, but so I would say the last part of April, the beginning of May has been a sort of fridge kind of cold kind of experience within our home. And I came home at night and the goodly pastor said, it's having a family life seminar on Facebook. Now, he know I am very few things I'm addicted to and enjoy, but a family life seminar is one of the things that I really, really enjoyed. And it was one of those presentations when we lived in the US, was one of the couples presenting. And he said it's vertical marriage. And I called Tosca, I called my sister, and I said, your brother-in-law know what time it is? You know, he find a family life presentation online. And both of us laughed about it. And I went upstairs, and he had it already. My husband is not the most social media person, friendly person. So to find it on Facebook that he's not on, I still have to figure out that. So to find it on Facebook that he's not on, but he found it on Facebook and he pulled it up and we looked at it. And why I'm saying that is that I was speaking to another young person and I was telling him, you see Pastor Hospitalis and myself, and you think, one of my nieces said we make marriage look so seamless. But it's a lot of work. If I was married to me, Dr. Ocho, I would have peace out because you're crazy. But it's a lot of work to stay married and to enjoy and not endure. And one of the things that we would have done over the years is educate ourselves as to what a healthy, functioning marriage is. And I just want to put a plug. You could find it on Facebook. You could go YouTube, Vertical Marriage. The seminar is there. It spoke volume. It brought me back to moving from being a discontented wife to being a wife that I am, okay, so your anniversary thing didn't happen, but guess what? This marriage is still happening. And you have many more years to come that would allow you to experience your marriage. One of the things that we do that I enjoy, we spend whenever I'm in the kitchen, very rare I'm in the kitchen by myself. So my husband, he will cut up, or what you did today? Or he did the dishes. He did the dishes. I was like, so I wonder, saying I would have made something, I wonder who is doing the dishes. So we enjoy that. So he's in the garden. The other day I was on the phone upstairs and he's in the garden. He called me to see a breadfruit on the tree. So it's things like that. And really thinking about what my mate enjoy and really working at making sure that your marriage stay alive.
Okay, and this was not one of the questions we had, but our audience has posed a question to Dr. Ocho, which we would take. A couple is having conception problems, but members keep asking when they would conceive. How do you sensitize the congregation in this matter?
No, that's such an important question. I remember, because as you know, my wife and I have no children, and we are very fulfilled. At 60 years, 31 years of marriage, July will be 32, and we have no regrets, because we had said we didn't want children. It's not that she was barren or I was incapable, but we didn't want, but we had put things in place, should in case she became pregnant, well, at least she would have left work for the first 7 years so that she would have taken care of the children. And I remember when I got tired of people, when I get my knees, I turned to one person one day and I said, did I ever ask you for sugar or milk? You see, the thing about this, and this thing upsets me so much, is that people push you to fulfill their dreams and their goals, and when it comes, they are nowhere there. Because when that child is crying in the night and you can't sleep, they are comfortable in their homes. When that child is ill and you have to cope with, is my child going to be alive in the morning? They don't understand the psychological gymnastics that you have to go through just the fact of having this child, when I actually saw the birth of a child in labor, I mean, when I was in the labor ward as a nurse getting an orientation to midwifery, I couldn't understand for the life of me, my God, how? I mean, and it was amazing to see how after all that pain with the expansion of the symphysis pubis and the crossing of the skull bones and the head and the shoulder manipulation, and when that is done, that lady is smiling as though nothing happened. It was a mind-boggling experience. And some members are too insensitive. Because you don't know how many persons who you see not having children, every time that woman sees a menses, you don't know what that does to her. The sleepless nights, the crotchety experience that the husband has to undergo. How she will want to scratch him and want to feel as though she would kill him. Why you didn't make me pregnant? Because you know I want a child. And you come very glibly when I get in the knees. You don't know how much I have tried. You don't know how much money I've spent to get in vitro fertilization. That didn't work. You don't know how I planned with my husband, understanding my menstrual cycle. I did without sex for 28 days. Because I know the egg come in. And I say, come boy, tonight we're going at rough and temper. We're having a good time. And the fella feel like $1 million. And then at the end of the month, she crying. Because after all that work, and I kept myself, members have to learn to stop allowing people to fulfill their dreams for them. Because they just get pregnant. Not that they were happy with every pregnancy, but it happened that it was easy to become pregnant. So they feel it is easy for everybody. Let us stop being insensitive and let people enjoy their experience.
Wow. You know, should I allow you to add? Yes, Sister Tessa wants to add 2 cents.
No, I want to speak to the female that would be going through that, because I really, when I said that in my bio, I really had the desire to have 10 children. But I have polycystic ovary syndrome that did not facilitate that. And then when I could have gone through the process of getting pregnant, when we discussed the different hoops and tunnels you had to go through, we were fine.
Yeah.
So I want, do what you think you need to do, but for the female, come to a point where you are happy with the life God has given you. There's a wonderful text in the Bible that talks about a barren woman and her home shall be blessed. And whenever I give presentation, there is, I kid you not, some other person, a senior person will come and try to bless my womb. So now I start off by saying, guess what? I'm good.
Yeah.
I have my nieces, Tabitha, Joanna, Lemuel, Daniel, Adila. If I forget anybody, they will be upset. Eden and Emma and Elise. I have them, they come by me, Israel and Solomon, can't forget those, and all the other nieces and nephews I didn't call. When they come by me, I feel fulfilled. And just, funny enough, just this morning I was telling my cousin, because she was suggesting, why don't I adopt? I can't remember how the conversation come on. I said, guess what? When my nieces, my younger nieces come by me and we agree that they are coming for 3 days and 4 days and whatever the experiences, they might want to stay over next day, it's okay. I'm happy when they come and I'm happy when they leave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've come to that point. I really, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the experience, but I've also grown to enjoy this experience here.
Yeah.
And you as a young person who, or even senior in your relationship of having a desire to have children, you have to come to terms that, guess what? This is the hand God has dealt me. I'm going to love it and enjoy it and live as fulfilled life as you can.
Wow. Indeed, both doctors were trying their best not to tell those folks just to mind their business. They were trying to explain it to their best knowledge, but in simple layman terms, mind your business. Yeah? So this evening has been a wonderful evening. We have learned so much. We have learned so much in the topics that we have discussed this evening. And indeed, we are grateful to each panelist who has made himself available to have this evening session being what it was. I thank you so much for your input and your information. And the viewing audience, I would want to think that they were truly blessed by this evening's proceeding. And by extension, we are happy. We are happy that we have chosen this platform to bring these issues into the forefront so that situations could now be addressed in the correct way, and some information that was not available is now available because of what was done here this evening. I thank you so much. At this time, we are going to have the vote of thanks being done, and after that, we would have the closing prayer. So this time, we would ask that individual who is going to do a vote of thanks to come and do that vote of thanks.
What an afternoon. We thank God for our AY session today. It is not often that great minds sit at the same table, but we are so grateful to have had Dr. Ocho, pastor and sister hospitalist, to educate us on such relevant topics which can enhance our daily lives. Thank you all for being here. We would also like to thank our most faithful First Elder for being our moderator this afternoon, our musicians and choristers who graciously accepted the call to bless us with their instruments and their voices, Brother Kendall for his timely health feature and special music, and some of our young people that we could always count on, Sister Trinaika, Brother Joshua, and also Brother Abiel Henry. In a very special way, we express thanks to South Caribbean Media, headed by Dr. Cleve Sandley. May the Lord continue to bless you, your family, and also your ministry. In conclusion, we thank you, our viewing audience, for setting aside some time to worship with us. We acknowledge the fact that we experienced some technical difficulties, which we apologize for and endeavor to rectify as we move forward. At this time, I will call on our choristers as we continue for a short while with sound service.
a wonderful evening, an evening well spent. So let's continue to be lifted in the atmosphere of praise and worship. We're going to end this evening on a high note of praise. Jesus is the rock on which I stand. So join with us and sing as we magnify the name of the Lord. Let's go together.
Jesus is the rock on which I stand. 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 He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. He's above, below, before, behind, and around me. Oh, Jesus is the rock on which I stand. The Lord's our rock, in Him we hide, our shelter in the time of storm. Through whatever may betide, our shelter in the time of storm. Mighty God, in a weary hour, who will shade on the burning side. Faithful God, Lord of every kind, our shelter in the time of storm. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. Have a grand time. So when the angels, hallelujah. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. Have a grand time. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. Have a grand time. So when the angels, hallelujah. We're gonna have a grand time up in heaven. Have a grand time. What a mighty God! What a mighty God we serve! What a mighty God we serve! The angels bow before Him, heaven and earth adore Him. What a mighty God we serve! What an awesome God! What an awesome God we serve! What an awesome God we serve! Angels bow before Him, heaven and earth adore Him. What an awesome God we serve! So in the precious seed, so in the precious seed, so in the precious seed. Harvest time is coming by and by. So in the precious seed, so in the precious seed. Harvest time is coming by and by. Someday in glory, you will find me. You will find me. You will find me. Someday in glory, you will find me. Singing and shouting for eternity. For my mind's made up and I won't turn back. I'm going to see my Jesus someday. For my mind's made up and I won't turn back. I'm going to see my Jesus someday. It is raining all around
We're about to bring this evening to a close. We're about to have our prayer. I will ask you to lift your hearts heavenwards. I wouldn't ask you to stand. But as you're about to approach the throne of grace once again, we're about to speak to our God. So we'll bow our heads, close our eyes, lift our hearts heavenwards. Eternal Father, once again we thank you, dear God, for the end of another Sabbath day. We are about, dear Lord, to enter into this new week, and you alone know what it has in store for us. We ask you, dear Lord, that you will continue to bless your children. Bless them, O Lord, and they're going out and they're coming, and protect from all evil forces, even from this virus, the Lord, that we have been facing. We ask you, Lord, that you will continue to shield us. But most of all, we ask you that you will keep us under your wings of safety. May you keep us faithful to the end. As we look forward to your soon coming, we pray that we will be ready to hear from your lips, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Not only locally in Trinidad, but worldwide, dear Lord, we continue to lift up your children. And we ask you, dear Lord, that you'll grant them the same blessing that we so desire for ourselves, so that when you come, I pray all those that within the hearing of my voice, those who are listening, dear Lord, Father, who are witnessing even on social media, I pray, God, that they will be standing among the faithful to say, this is a God in which we have been waiting for, and he will save us. Bless us, dear Lord, with your richest blessing. But most of all, save us when you come, we ask, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen and amen.
Thanks, we give you thanks for all you've done.